My name is Carlo Tapia. I'm a marketing coordinator at eFolder and your host for today's event. Welcome to the special eFolder webinar. We are pleased to announce that eFolder has acquired Cloudfinder, an international leader in cloud-to-cloud backup services. Today, we are joined by Kevin Hoffman, eFolder CEO, and Marcus Nyman, Cloudfinder CEO. First, let me cover a few housekeeping items. Today's session is being recorded. The recorded version of this webinar will be made available on eFolder's YouTube channel. We will also make copies of the slides available to those who attend the event. With over 450 people registered for today's session, we have put all participants in listen-only mode. You can enjoy the audio portion of today's event by either streaming to your computer or by dialing in over the phone. Questions are strongly encouraged throughout today's webinar. We have planned a special Q&A section at the end of today's discussion, but you may submit them as we go along, and we will try to address them on the fly. Now, let me introduce today's speakers. Kevin Hoffman is CEO and CTO of eFolder. He has been involved with eFolder in various roles since the very early days. Kevin has a PhD in computer science from Purdue and lives in the Denver area with his wife and 2-year-old daughter. Marcus Nyman is the CEO of Cloudfinder and is responsible for operations of the business unit. Previously, Marcus served as the Scandinavian manager for EmailVision, one of the world's largest ESP SaaS solutions. He was also CEO of the search engine developer Travel Lab Technologies and co-founder of software publisher ED Tools Solutions. Kevin and Marcus, take it away. Looks like we're experiencing some difficulty with Kevin's audio.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. Funny how the mute button
there we go.
There
we go.
Sorry about that. Hey everyone, it's Kevin here, and I believe we've got Marcus as well.
Yeah. Hey everyone, nice to be here.
Yep. So yeah, we're really excited to share the news today about Cloudfinder joining the eFolder family. We think that it's a really compelling fit for partners and the coming needs of how we're evolving in the market over the coming 5 years. So we've gotten some pretty good coverage in the channel so far, and we think this is just the beginning. And we're happy to share with you today our joint vision for what we hope to accomplish, how we're going to help partners with the Cloudfinder technology as partners are trying to monetize this trend towards moving towards the cloud. So first, I'd like to share a couple of key facts about eFolder. So eFolder was founded way back in 2002, headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. We're currently around 120 people, and our partner network has grown to more than 2,000 partners. Our mission is to provide peace of mind by protecting business productivity. So when we boil down exactly what we do with all of our various data protection and business continuity products, that at the end of the day, it's about giving that peace of mind to both customers that their data is safe, their lifeblood of their business, as well as the partners who are building their businesses on top of our services, that their revenue streams are stable and that they're taking good care of their customers. So why did eFolder acquire Cloudfinder? What are some of the trends and the motivations behind this acquisition? So one of the key trends here is that businesses, especially SMBs, are naturally just going to be moving towards the cloud. Cloud technology has really matured quite a bit. It used to be called the grid, and back in the early days, in the 90s or the 80s, you had thin clients. But it's really to the point now where you can solve most of the problems that you have from this sort of remotely connected business model, hosted business model with smart caching and other things to motivate businesses to run their businesses in the cloud. And so, just a few years from now, 4 years from now, the size of the market for cloud spending by end users is ridiculously large, $180 billion market. And so in 2014 today, just cloud spending on the cloud today is $13 billion. So if you look at the growth rate over the coming 4 years for spending, it's just a ridiculously fast growth market. MSPs are in the throes of figuring out how to change and adapt to these new business models. On-premise exchange has typically been a very profitable source of revenue for partners, and how is this going to be transitioning as more and more businesses adopt and want to do cloud first. They're thinking cloud first. Microsoft's making a big push. So how do we monetize the cloud? How do we grow our businesses around the cloud? Especially with some of the strategies Microsoft is taking, given its more direct approach and its slim margins for channel partners. What kind of value can channel partners add around the cloud? We think there's a large, good story to tell there. Apart from eFolder, how partners can monetize the cloud, but we think that Cloudfinder can become a key piece of what partners can do for their customers to not only properly protect them in the cloud, but also to also monetize their customer base running on the cloud. Meanwhile increasing their revenues but lowering their labor costs. So, just in case you don't know, Cloudfinder does backup, restore, instant search across multiple cloud services. So it does backup and so forth of Office 365, Google Apps, and Salesforce today. And we'll get more into what Cloudfinder is a little bit later. So why don't we move on to the next slide here. All right, so there's many market trends indicating that more and more businesses are moving to the cloud, and as a result, business-critical data is living inside of the cloud. So businesses are relying on their cloud providers to do the right thing, to not lose their data. And even though data loss by the actual infrastructure providers themselves has been rare, there's several other use cases. Accidental deletion or overwritten or hacked admin accounts or other things that these infrastructure vendors are not guarding against 100%. That leaves businesses open to to challenges or to risks, to key risks that they have when they're relying on the cloud to house their data. So surprisingly, an Aberdeen report in 2013 showed that 32% of businesses have reported some type of data loss using a cloud service, and that's surprisingly high, given how rare Google or Microsoft might lose somebody's data. But it goes back to traditional causes of data loss. Even with on-premise infrastructure, the number one cause of data loss is not IT equipment failure; it's been user error, and that continues to be the case when you're running in the cloud. So yeah, why don't we go on to the next slide here? So there's really these two problems that we mentioned. Businesses themselves and users, not only do they have faced new risks as they're running their businesses in the cloud, but they're also using more and more cloud applications. So there's entire ecosystems being built around Office 365 and Google Apps and others that all will start integrating together over the next 5 to 10 years, where you'll get this entire sort of ecosystem, dozens of cloud applications that a business might rely on to fully run their business as these sort of vertical line of business apps move to the cloud. And so business data is getting fragmented across all these various cloud applications. And so, how do you, with all of these different vendors involved, how do you properly enforce, compliance and making sure that, you've got all of your business data in one spot, and you can still feel like you retain ownership and control over that, and you're complying with regulatory requirements for data retention and other requirements. And as we mentioned, channel partners are facing, how do we replace and even increase revenue streams that are going away as on-premise exchange and other types of services are going to the cloud instead. Where larger volume higher user counts could be more important, perceived as more important. And so being able to drive and deliver value services around the commoditized software that's, the cloud services software that's, where the pricing is known publicly and fixed and so forth. Yeah, so, the cloud, even though it appears easy on the surface, it really becomes fairly complex when you really try to deploy the cloud applications effectively for your average SMB. Cloud computing is not do-it-yourself computing, and so that there's tremendous value for channel partners to bring to an SMB customer, to be that trusted advisor to say, here's the best practices, here's how we can take the cloud and leverage it for your business, make you run faster, more effectively, be more nimble, move quicker, cut costs, etc. And so there's tremendous opportunities to add that value-added service, that fully managed service that MSPs have always been critical, that key piece for tying it all together. That's perhaps even more important as you have even more, fragmented number of applications, and the integration work required is even more complex. So, next slide here. Another trend is that these Office and other apps in the cloud have already grown tremendously large channels, and that's going to change even more dramatically in the next 5 years. So these stats are about a year old, but there's around 22,000 transacting Office 365 partners, 6,000 Google Apps partners, and 600 Salesforce consulting partners. So eFolder's channel-focused strategy is completely aligned with servicing the cloud, that we can be a channel-focused company and yet service the cloud ecosystem very effectively. And there's almost zero competition for data protection for these services. You just won't find any other service that provides a unified platform for backing up these multiple cloud applications in one platform, with instant full-text search across your data sets. And this is just the beginning. We're going to be adding, dozens of cloud applications that will all integrate with this unified cloud app, data protection, and restore platform. So that essentially the value prop here for you to take to your end users is, this is data insurance for your data. The cost of the service itself will be very affordable, only a fraction of what they're normally paying for their Office 365 or other services. And so if you can sell it as an insurance play and demonstrate, the 5 or 6 common use cases that you're guarding against, with these use cases with Cloudfinder, that we think that the economics will match the value delivered to the end user. It will be a very easy sell, but because of eFolder's economies of scale, we can take a price point to the channel that will effectively double a channel partner's profit margin from Office 365 or more, where you can see profits from 50 cents to $1 per user or more from adding this service on top, with very little labor overhead with this fully automated service. So next we're going to hear from Marcus. Marcus has done an incredible job guiding and developing the Cloudfinder product with the Cloudfinder team, and so happy to turn it over to him to let him share what he's built with you.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much. We could move to the next slide, and I'll talk a little bit about the company first. First of all, I get really excited just hearing about Cloudfinder from Kevin. We are super excited about the acquisition, and it's all new to us. So let me share with you where we come from and how it all started. So Cloudfinder is a Swedish company. We're in the middle of a very IT-intense startup-rich environment here. We have very, very good IT universities around us, and that we draw talent from. So in the beginning of 2012, I pulled together a team. We've been venture-backed from the beginning, and I pulled together a team with the scope from day one to build a SaaS backup application with a lot of future-looking features. And this is very important to us, and going forward as partners to us, you will see Why this will matter, I'll get back to a little bit more about the product in a second. But I've built a team. We're all situated here in the office where I'm right now. So I'm talking with you from Malmö, Sweden. And we're a team of 7 here, and we're very, very technology focused. And what we did from the very beginning is we decided we were going to go channel. And that's why now being part of the eFolder family is a perfect match, and really coming full circle to what we envisioned were going to happen when we started. And Kevin's already outlined why this is a very suitable kind of channel product, and I'll get back more to the technology later. So we're already in business. We have a fair amount of very fast-growing install base, and we started with Google Apps and Salesforce. 365 is really the third product to be added to the mix, a third source that we cover, and that's by far the fastest growing. So in hindsight, we should have, of course, started with 365, and this is what I want to get at. The cloud market space is so fast-moving that in 2012, all eyes were on Google Apps, and that's why we started with Google Apps. But already a year later, and when we luckily were right in the middle of building 365 backup, 365 was already starting to overtake and seriously bite into Google Apps growth, and that has just been accelerating since. So this is one aspect to why it's important that we're a multi-source SaaS backup solution, because the logos you're seeing here on screen, you may recognize a few. So Rovio, it's the Angry Birds company. They're all yeah. So I'm just gonna. Many of these guys are Google Apps users, and many of them are changing to kind of a Google Apps 365 setup or keeping their options open. And one integral part for doing that is Cloudfinder, because we help them avoid vendor lock-in, and I'll get back to why that can be crucially important to you as an MSP when you're having a discussion with your customer. So next slide now, please. Next slide. Right, excellent. So here you actually have a chance to see a little bit about from the product, and I encourage everyone. We'll close out with that as well, that there are NFR accounts available to you guys. But here at least you have a little bit of a screenshot on screen. So we're obviously web-based, and through our what we feel is a very slick interface and very search-driven, hence the name Cloudfinder, we provide kind of a neutral platform, very source agnostic. It means it's not particularly built for Google Apps or for Salesforce or for Office 365. And as Kevin mentioned, we are adding in a very, very high pace now, thanks to the eFolder acquisition. We're adding a large number of new sources to complement these ones. This means that as an MSP, you can have a conversation with your customer about their entire, or more and more of their current and future SaaS or cloud setup. And one thing we'll know for sure today is we don't really know which apps are going to be the flavor of the day 1, 2, 3 years from now. Now, what you need to keep in mind then is that with Cloudfinder, you have a future-proof setup, because we can quickly add the sources that are going to be needed to work effectively with and helping your customers having a unified backup archive. I'll get back to some of the use cases, so I think we can move to the next slide and talk a little bit about that. All right, so, and Kevin also actually touched on why SaaS backup is needed. I mean, instinctively, maybe one would feel that surely is taken care of by a competent provider that I would also call a competent provider, such as Microsoft or Google, for that matter, or Salesforce, or you know, a lot of different providers that we're gonna announce very soon. But again, we have to differentiate between technical failure, hardware failure, system failure, which are in a risk matrix far down to the point of very rare or unlikely. And then in the other end of the spectrum, you have the everyday or certain errors, which is, a lost email, a lost document, a corrupted file through an insert, etc. And somewhere in between, you have what's really hurting a lot of companies. That is where a substantial amount of data gets lost, and that is, or particularly data that is of critical business value to the customer at that time. So you have all of the user errors, the malicious malicious activity, shorter service interruptions. You actually do have hacker attacks, and you see increasingly in all of the three services we're working with, we see an increasing amount of additional connectivity with other applications that may, through insert and upsert actions, corrupt data. So the opportunities to actually mess up your SaaS data increases rather than decreases. And I'll pause there and pick it up again in the use cases in a second. So
Marcus, we have a question from from Richard, who's asking, how do you respond to the objection, Microsoft takes care of my Office 365 backup. Why do I need backup of Office 365 separately?
Very good question, and that is a common question also for you will get the same question in the Google Apps environment. There are two parts to the question, two parts to the answer. The first is that if you look deeper into the 365 retention policies, they are not as complete as a real backup should be. There are limits to the policies, and depending on which license you're actually using or your customer is actually using. I encourage you to experience the difference also in availability for finding and restoring and moving the data that may be lost or deleted through simply trying Cloudfinder, and I think you will see a huge difference. There is also, to give you an example of how licensing works, which may be very interesting to you guys, with Cloudfinder, you do not have to maintain the original license. For instance, for employees leaving your customer's company, the customers may free up those licenses, use them with new starters, and all the while keeping the Cloudfinder license in place. And this also means you have a data retention policy in your company available to you that can carry on indefinitely without having to block licenses for these users. Now, the second part to the answer to the question, which is a very, very relevant question, of course, this is one of the because it's one of the first questions many end users or customers will ask of you, is if you select to work with Cloudfinder, even if your customer is only running Office 365 and no other SaaS applications, what I mentioned before is that you're creating a future-proof scenario for them. They can later decide to go Google or go somewhere else, and the backup will follow. The backup may actually even stay intact, and you don't even have to migrate that data. If you want to migrate the data, you can do it from Cloudfinder instead of between the active domains, between whatever services you're working on. And maybe thirdly, we strongly believe in kind of the fire insurance aspect of a cloud backup solution. This is why we're not running inside Office 365 infrastructure for Office backups or Google Apps. We could easily have decided to run this inside Google Apps Engine or Compute Cloud, but we don't. And the reason for this is that in the I admit, very unlikely, highly unlikely scenario of system failure or prolonged downtime. Actually, Google has been plagued by several instances of prolonged downtime and unavailability of service. you have a second route to your data that is undisputable, and whether or not the problem is due to commercial, technical, or catastrophic reasons, you have a second path to your data, and your data is physically in a second location. I hope that answered the question.
Hey Marcus, it's Kevin here. I just wanted to chime in with a couple of concrete examples. I was chatting with one partner, and they had a customer running on Office 365, and their SharePoint document library got corrupted from a bad migration, and essentially they wanted to go back to Microsoft and say, hey, we really need to restore this back to the state it was in a week ago. Can you help us with that? Microsoft said, sure, we keep backups for 2 weeks, no problem. But it actually took them 10 business days to actually go back to their data and restore it. Meantime, this partner had a customer down for over a week because they were waiting on Microsoft to restore their data. And so they haven't actually productized the backup portion of SharePoint in Office 365. Another concrete example is the SharePoint document library retention policy. There is no legal hold for documents in SharePoint right now like there is for email with your E3 plans. And so you can't just tell it to retain all versions of all SharePoint documents forever. So if you have something that's deleted more than 90 days old, your ability to recover that is just not there in Office 365 today. So you had somebody delete a contract 6 months ago and now it needs to be found, some question came up. If you don't have Cloudfinder or something like it, you're going to be in trouble. And then, a third example is, the versioning of documents that's retained. So Cloudfinder backs up your documents 3 times a day, whereas, the versioning policy in your SharePoint library is not going to be that granular. So if somebody went in there and encrypted a document and you're going to lose work, part of a work day's worth of work, you can actually have a greater chance of picking that back up with Cloudfinder because you're getting very granular retention of document versions. So those are just some specific examples that we found speaking with partners, some of the concrete examples to back up Marcus's principal statements there.
And I think that answers a few of the questions that we had in the queue. Somebody was asking if you're able to back up SharePoint within Office 365, and just to be clear, you will be able to do that with Cloudfinder?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, great. Let's move on here.
Yeah. All right, so maybe we go to the first use case. All right, excellent. So so we'll just share a couple of use cases with you, and so the first one is actually a 365 example. So I'll stick with the account, a deleted account in 365 can very, very easily be restored through Cloudfinder. It is a matter of, and as I mentioned before, even if this is, there are no limits to time frame in which this has to happen. So you can, if the account is deleted by accident, of course, using Cloudfinder is the solution. But also, if you decide, as I mentioned, to delete accounts to free up licenses, etc., you may safely delete those accounts, and when needed, as needed, you simply use Cloudfinder to restore either all of an account, or using search-based queries, you restore or filters. You can restore exactly what is needed to whoever it's needed for. So next, and just to cover more than 365. Basically the same risks apply in Google Drive. They're all even more dominant in Google than it is in 365 arena. There are there is massive data loss. There is no other way to put it. There is, based on what we experience or what we understand from our customers using Cloudfinder, there is massive amount of data loss from systems like Drive. And there are very clear statements from Google directly that you should simply use. As you can see, the second support answer from Google there, as you can read on screen. You should simply use a separate backup solution, such as Cloudfinder. So next, please. And just to cover Salesforce as well in the presentation, Salesforce actively encourages third-party backup, and we think that's wise because they actively leave it to the community around Salesforce, through ISVs such as us, to create something that by all means also should sit outside of Salesforce, and we think that is absolutely the correct approach. In fact, we were recommended during Dreamforce in November in breakout sessions by Salesforce themselves. We were recommended to as a solution that companies should use. So that was very nice. And in this example, this is only one of many deleted item examples in Salesforce where the system simply will not allow you to undelete records. So you deal with this in a poor manner by mistake, and you may damage your Salesforce data beyond repair. So next slide. Oh yeah, good. So I think Kevin mentioned legal hold, and the way Cloudfinder is built, we keep the data outside of the systems once they're backed up to the Cloudfinder Safe Haven encrypted archive outside of the source service. It's untamperable. There are no further actions in the system that the data originated from that can touch it. There are no means from within the source service for the company or the service itself through any automated effect. And let me give you an example of what that could be. Only not too many weeks ago, actually we're back in February now, Google had an event where if you had viewed emails using mobile devices, you could, and a large portion of the Google Apps or Gmail install base were affected by this. Emails were actually placed in trash or spam folders without you intending to, and without you touching that particular email. So you performed an action on one email and another was affected. And this is very, very scary to people. And basically the only way of combating this, because once the trash was emptied and the spam folder was emptied, there is simply no way of recovering those emails. And in Cloudfinder, because of the way the system is built, once the data is brought out of the source service, it cannot be touched, it cannot be deleted. So it's perfect. It's a perfect legal hold container.
Great. So Marcus, we actually have a few questions, and
excellent.
Especially we have 2 questions around compliance. So maybe you can elaborate on how Cloudfinder helps clients or partners reach compliance, and how it fits into that topic.
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, through the acquisition by eFolder, we now we're now in a situation where we have a U.S. parent company that is far better equipped to respond to and help MSPs discover discover the compliance status for their customers in turn. We believe that so maybe instead of me going on about this, Kevin, if you would like to chime in at this point and
Sure, yeah.
say a few words about this, because there are already steps taken.
Yeah, so we're we're in the process already of getting the Cloudfinder service to be running in eFolder's data centers. We've got 2 in the U.S., 1 in Kelowna in Canada, and we're launching 1 in Amsterdam very shortly here. So we're already kicking off what needs to happen for the service to become HIPAA compliant for eFolder to sign business associate agreements. Many regulations require the long-term data retention of data by law, and so your customers essentially are required by law to retain their cloud data, and in some cases there exists legal hold in certain services for for that, but it can be quite expensive and the coverage is not 100%, and so the way that we're going to be selling Cloudfinder is very economical, low-cost method that's a fraction of the price of Google Vault or other options that customers might have to try to meet regulatory compliance requirements for 3, 7, or 10-year data retention requirements that you find in laws and different regulations.
Perfect. That's great. We have another question, and I'll let Marcus take this one. Can you restore to a specific day and time using Cloudfinder?
Yes. Yes, you can.
Perfect.
You essentially, in the interface, when you're searching, you search for the data you want to, restore, or you select a user, and then you can, in the advanced search, you can select, I want to search as it existed at this point in time, as my data existed at this point in time, or you can, when you're restoring a user, you can do something similar. So it gives you pretty advanced control over, when you're restoring multiple documents, to do it at some specific point in time, or, to review different revisions of a certain document, etc.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I encourage everyone to try that. It's a really neat experience, and it's not like anything else that you might expect from kind of, I don't know, traditional or old school backup systems. This is much more like Googling for the data you need to restore.
I mean, imagine combining the time machine style backups that you get in OS X with the slider style for browsing timeline, combined with instant full text search of all of your backed up data across your different cloud apps, all together in one unified platform. That will give you a good idea of what Cloudfinder is. I think it's also important to mention briefly, Cloudfinder goes way beyond backup, and currently today it's the administrator / partner that interfaces with the data, but quite easily, we can extend this concept to allow users to interact with Cloudfinder, so that a user who has their data spread across 2, 3, 4, 5, or a dozen cloud applications can now have a single portal to go through to do instant full-text search of their cloud data across all of their cloud services to get instant access to that data. First from the web, and in the future from mobile devices. So the user level access is not there today, but it's something that we found would be easy to add to their platform. So we see there's really interesting use cases way beyond backup where you can add a tremendous amount of value to a business as they look to the future, 1, 2, 3, 5 years out, how they're going to be interacting with their data in the cloud. We think that Cloudfinder can be a key piece of that. So if you want to sort of advance to show the text here, that would be good. Yep. Good. So we think there's some tremendous synergies in this partnership, in this acquisition. So Cloudfinder came to the table with an excellent product, already with a mature product in production with some pretty large customers. Some customers with thousands of seats. Some credible partners, a channel that they've been building up, mainly in Europe. And they also or the only provider that we found that really built their technology from the ground up to do instant full-text search combined with multiple cloud services from the beginning. And if you don't bake that in from the beginning, it's hard to bolt on after the fact. And Cloudfinder's service was really unique in that perspective, so that was another really good angle. They also have a rapid R&D progress, so they're almost all developers on their team today, and they follow an agile Scrum-style development process that allows them to rapidly innovate and quickly deliver product innovations, very, very frequently. So they've also designed a horizontally scalable product that's already running at scale that meshed well with eFolder's cloud architecture and design. So when you combine this with eFolder's experience, 9+ years experience operating our own cloud, our larger resources to expand their R&D team, and our ability to, our existing channel and our ability to go interact with the channel, we think that Cloudfinder, as part of eFolder, can become the world-leading cloud data protection platform for cloud services. Also, eFolder. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead and finish. We just have a question, but go ahead and finish with the slide, and I'll throw that out there.
Sure. Just a final point. eFolder, our vision has been to build a comprehensive platform for protecting your data for your customers wherever it lives, on-premise, on NAS devices, file-level data, server-style data, data that lives in infrastructure clouds, data that lives in SaaS applications and clouds. Wherever it lives, eFolder now has a solution to cover that data all from one company. And so our goal is to be our channel partners, unified, comprehensive partner for data protection. And so that's the vision we're executing against here.
Perfect. So we have a question from Anthony, and I bring on the slide here, people are saying you mentioned Backupify and spanning, and he's asking how does Cloudfinder compare to Backupify and spanning, and so I'll let both of you take this one on.
Sure. I'll add my few comments. Yep. And Marcus, I'm sure, will have plenty of opinions too. So, Backupify and spanning were designed originally as single service vendors. They were both focused on Google Apps, and neither of them focused on instant full text search of the data. Today, in both of those platforms, you can do searches. It manually crawls your data looking for content. The interface, it's much more of a traditional backup style interface where you go and you pick out certain items that you browse by date and time or other things, and to go and restore that. They've also been recently adding some additional platforms, so they both recently added Salesforce, but they're really playing catch up. Neither of them support Office 365 today, and as well, their focus on the channel is almost insignificant. Spanning has a channel program. They're only giving their channel partners 20% gross margins, to my knowledge, and the retail price points are both fairly high. So they're selling it for $3 per user per month, and retail. And we feel that we can give price points to channel partners dramatically lower, several times lower than that price point, so they can still go back to their end users with price points significantly less than $3 per user, but make significantly more profits if you were a spanning or Backupify partner.
So if I can add a few words to that, we've known, or I've known, parts of the teams at least of these companies since we started Cloudfinder, and we keep bumping into each other. And it originally was good for us also to see that we were not the only company going out there with this vision about SaaS backup. So sometimes it feels good to not be alone in the ocean. At the same time, we could also exactly what Kevin just said about their approach to the problem at hand, which in their case was to basically back up Google. that has always seemed to kind of be the scope of their vision, and the way that, and this is reflected in the way their kind of product technology is put together and what it's kind of intended to do. And we can see, once we overtook them by adding 365, coming from, you know, starting later and moving faster, we could see that our concept of the way we built the platform to be, you know, an open platform, able to add new services very fast and very effective, that we felt that this is one deciding factor. We've also mentioned a couple of times here during the presentation that backup, while being very, very important and a very clear sell to customers of SaaS today, a correctly built platform opens up for many new or many additional value propositions, and we've touched on them in terms of, you know, data management, migration support, avoiding vendor lock-in, different things. But so to close out on the backup and file and span question, I think they're great companies. I like the fact that they're out there. I'd like to see, and we're sure there's going to be more competition coming into the market as they see how fast, as everyone sees how fast this is growing. And I'm just happy we made the technology decisions we did early on.
Yeah, just to add to that, you know, Backrify was the first player to market. They really pioneered this space, and Spanning followed shortly thereafter. But this is really a pretty small market with almost zero competition still today. You know, if you look at the backup market, it's highly crowded today. It's a really critical market, so it's quite large, and that's why there's so many different vendors and players in the space. But you know, there's lots of solutions out there for traditional backup. You know, and then you move into file sync and sharing, where a channel partner will face less competition. You know, there's really only 15 to 20 serious vendors in the channel files, in the file sync and sharing space, and even fewer in the channel focus space. You know, and it's also a rapidly growing and emerging market. And then you look at the cloud application backup space, and this is really a very early emerging market where partners that move early and can become thought leaders in their area, you know, with their customer base when they start chatting about these important problems. Because you know, there's really very little other vendors and solutions out there. You've got Cloudfinder, Backup Find Spanning, and really two others that are very small. So it's an early market, so it's a good opportunity, you know, to enter this rapidly growing market early for both us and our partners.
Okay, that's great, and thank you for those answers. Our queue is just filling up, and we're going to try our best to get to all the questions. Let's go ahead and finish up with the slides, and then we can jump into the dedicated Q&A.
Yeah, just one more slide. It's the NFR count. You know, the best way to figure out if what we're saying is good or not is to just go try Cloudfinder for yourself. It's extremely easy to set up. You know, it took me all of 5 minutes to set up the backup of my Google Apps account and just a few more minutes to set up Office 365. So it's really point and click. You know, once there's a how-to guide out on the Cloudfinder support page that'll walk you through everything, but you know, one of your techs should be able to do it in less than a half hour the very first time around. And it's set it and forget it. So just go out there, give it a try, you know, experience it for yourself, and you know, that's the very best way that we think that you'll figure out for yourself if this is something that's going to add value to you and your customers that you're moving to the cloud.
Okay, great. So so I encourage everyone to take advantage of this NFR, the 25 NFR license that we're offering. So please go to Cloudfinder and sign up. On that
Just
note,
to clarify, that's 25 users. Yep, 25 user NFR.
25 users. So on that note, let's jump into Q&A. I'll start with, as I said, there's a whole lot of questions. So excuse me if these are a bit random or not in order. But John is asking, what other SaaS services beyond the three does Cloudfinder back up? And I think just to rephrase that question, what other SaaS services does Cloudfinder plan on developing or developing backups for?
I think that's where we really want to hear from channel partners. What do you think is the most relevant? We have some immediate ideas. We don't want to publicly announce anything until we've completed them, but within 1 quarter you should see at least 2, maybe 3 other additional cloud services be launched. Based on initial feedback from our channel that we think are relevant to the channel. You can imagine different categories that we might target. Other file sharing and sync solutions don't have a good backup. Other CRM platforms don't have a good backup. There's other line of business applications that are becoming popular. And then there's sort of either task management or product management type of apps that are also popular. So, please send us feedback. Hoffman at eFolder.net or Marcus.Nyman at Cloudfinder.com. We want to hear from you what apps we should support.
Great, and we have a question from David who's asking, how does this acquisition affect other eFolder products like Anchor? And I'll just tag another question onto that. Somebody is asking, does Cloudfinder work with Anchor, and is it necessary?
I mean, that is one that we should definitely announce. Obviously we're definitely going to integrate Cloudfinder with Anchor, and so that's one of the first connectors that we'll add to Cloudfinder is a connector to Anchor, so that Anchor users can get full-text search of their data inside of Anchor plus an additional backup of their Anchor data. So that is a connector we'll be adding soon. Figuring out how to bundle that or price that, it's still up in the air, but we know that there's tremendous synergies there. We've already done, some of the technical preliminary work. Anchor has an API. Cloudfinder has used similar APIs in the past, so it's not a big technical hurdle to integrate Cloudfinder with Anchor. In terms of other eFolder services, we are definitely looking at the entire eFolder suite and platform, how we can integrate them all, longer term with their backup and BDR and now Anchor and Cloudfinder. So, we're definitely very interested to hear from partners what you think are the most compelling integration points.
Okay, great. We have a question from Lewis who has heard about the fact that we opened a Canadian data center for Anchor, and he's asking if there will be a Canadian data center for Cloudfinder, if there are plans on developing that.
Yeah, I think we will want to run Cloudfinder in Canada. The timing is not yet known since we're focused on the U.S. data center first, but in general our architecture is uniform across the different sites, and so once we get it running on one site, it won't be that difficult to also have it run in Canada.
Yeah, let me just add to that. We're super excited about the opportunities to be running in eFolder infrastructure, because we see a tremendous opportunity for even better performance, much faster application.
So today the Cloudfinder is running in the EU instance of Amazon.
Okay. We have a question for Dale, and this question, Marcus, if you can answer this one. Can you search by criteria? And he's listing as examples subject, sender, date, etc.
Yes, you can, and I encourage to go and try this out. But yes, there are advanced search options for searching as well as filtering search.
Okay, and we have a question from Zach who's asking, does Cloudfinder only support SharePoint on Office 365, or does it support other vendor implementations such as Intermedia? And we have a few questions around Intermedia, so if you could address that, Marcus.
Sure. So the short answer is only 365. The longer term answer is that coming in under eFolder here, we make the platform available to the rest of eFolder, and any product development in that area would by no means be would of course be interesting for, I guess, for eFolder to take a look at. So maybe also this is for you to comment on, Kevin.
Yeah, so the hosted exchange providers like Intermedia is quite popular, and others. They're using Exchange at the core of it and SharePoint. So from a technical point of view, the interface to those private hosted clouds of Exchange would be similar. It's a matter of getting the appropriate level of access.
Yes.
And whether those providers provide the API access needed to pull the data. So Intermedia has come up a lot, so we'd love to reach out to Intermedia and see if there's a partnership opportunity there. But from a technical point of view, it's possible. It's just a matter of business integrations, them allowing us into their system. So if you have a good relationship with Intermedia and you'd like to see this happen, you're welcome to reach out to us, and we can see if we can approach Intermedia together to put forth a business case for this partnership.
Okay, and I think we have time for one last question. Brian is asking, can you, and Marcus, I believe you alluded to this earlier, can you migrate between Office 365 and Gmail, or vice versa?
Yes, you can. The interface is built around restoring information rather than making complete domain migration or complete organization migrations in the current version. So you can move individual objects, you can move all the objects from particular users, etc. And going forward, the natural coming steps for this is to add interface options for larger migrations. To be a supporting tool for migrations, but for now, we like to talk about the inter solution restore opportunity. So more.
Yeah,
one of the key. Yeah, go on.
One of the key distinguishing factors of the Cloudfinder technology was that because they built their service from the beginning to accommodate multiple services, they're actually converting the data as it comes in into some sort of canonical format that can then be used either if you download the data that's in Cloudfinder locally, you can choose to download it, or when you're storing across services, it's already in a canonical format, well-known format. So email, Excel documents, Word documents, etc. You can move back and forth between Google Drive and SharePoint or the email systems and not experience data loss. And so that's that's sort of a key distinguishing part of the platform that was baked in from the beginning.
Great. Well, I think that's all the time that we have. I encourage all the I want to first off thank all the participants and the attendees of today's webinar. We encourage you to go to cloudfinder.com and sign up for a trial. We will upgrade all attendees' accounts so that they can take advantage of that trial and the 25 user NFR. But thank you very much, Kevin and Marcus, for joining us today. And on that note, goodbye.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.